Okay, so as I said before, ahlan wa sahlan, everyone. Greetings from Dubai. Um, we are starting chapter 15. Oh, it looks like there's a problem with the Toronto connection. Those of you who are watching online, just a moment. I'm going to try to reconnect. I will just welcome Leah, who's signed in. Okay, Toronto people, you're back. Excellent. Okay, you guys can see me and hear me okay now?
Yep.
Okay, so we're starting chapter 15. Now, we're not going to do the entire chapter. As I've mentioned the last couple of weeks, these chapters in Yehoshua, there's large sections of them that are very, very technical, that just describe the borders and the cities of the inheritance. And again, if we were sitting in the same room together, I could show you on a board, and we could actually trail the border, and it's actually very, very interesting to see the degree to which these descriptions in the psukim, to what degree they fit well with areas that we can identify today. And that's amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to do, to be able to, and we'll see soon a few examples, names of places that we recognize today, either based on the geographical description, topographical description, or the names of the locations themselves. Right. So in some books there are maps that show the individual settlement areas of the different tribes, but it's difficult. You could find those things like that online if you're interested in seeing it in more depth. We're going to skim over those, but go more to the individual stories that are in each chapter. Okay, so we are.
You could, I think in Skype you could use like a share screen kind of option where, let's say you have something on the screen that you want to show us.
Right.
You can do it half screen or the full screen. You can just
okay. I'll have to check that and see if I can figure that out. Maybe it's worth it to do that for one class. I'll see if I can.
Ask one of your kids.
You're probably right. You're probably right, Paul. Okay, let's start. Chapter 15. And a lot of the tribe of the children of Judah, according to their families, was to the border of Edom. Sorry, and not a lot, and the lot, right? Let's just remind ourselves where we are as far as the context. And that is 2 chapters ago we saw that the 2.5 tribes, right, that were promised an inheritance on the eastern side of the Jordan River, was promised them by Moshe, with the condition that they be at the forefront of the battle and when they cross the Jordan into the western side of the Jordan River. So we see 2 chapters ago that this promise, or this agreement, was honored by Joshua, by Yehoshua. Last week we saw the beginning of the inheritance of the tribe of Judah. And we saw specifically the story of Kalev ben Yefuneh. And we saw some eye-opening things about Kalev ben Yefuneh, and how what we saw last chapter reflects in a very different way. It kind of makes us reread the story of the 12 spies of the Meraglim in back in Sefer Bamidbar. It makes us realize that Joshua actually was not as big of a hero as we may think in that story, and it's really Kalev ben Yefuneh who really was the one who led the charge, to thwart the complaints and of the 10 spies, and Joshua seemed to have just kind of joined in on Kalev's coattails, and because of that, Kalev is entitled, and he receives the city of Hebron. Okay, until here, everyone's with us? Okay, that was just a quick recap. So this week's chapter picks up in detailing the borders and the exact cities of the inheritance of the tribe of Yehuda. Okay, and the lot of the tribe of the children of Yehuda, according to their families, was to the border of Edom, to the wilderness of Tzin, southward at the uttermost part of the south. Okay, we're just going to read a little bit of these verses about the actual geographical areas, and then we'll skip a bit. And their south border was from the edge of the Salt Sea, right? That's Yam HaMelach, the Dead Sea, from the bay that faces southward. Okay, so from the southernmost edge of the Yam HaMelach, the Dead Sea, and it went to the south side of Ma'ale Akrabim and passed along to Tzin and ascended onto the south side of Kadesh Barnea. So this basically goes all the way down south and passed along to Chetzon and went up to Adar and circled to Karka. Okay. And from there it passed toward Atzmon and went to the river of Egypt, and to the goings out of the boundary where were at the sea. This shall be the southern boundary. Okay, and the east border was the Salt Sea, right, Yam HaMelach, even to the end of the Jordan, and their border in the north quarter was from the Bay of the Sea at the uttermost part of the Jordan. Okay, at this point we're going to skip. Okay, we're going to skip to verse 13. Okay, meaning what happens between verse 5 and verse 13 is then it goes and it starts describing, meaning basically what it did until now, until verse 5, verse 4, it's describing the southern border of the tribe of Yehuda, which basically is the southern border of the land of Israel as we know it today, more or less. And then it goes and it starts describing Judah's northern border as it goes up into the mountain, to the Judean Judean hills. And then it says the following. Verse 13, everyone with me? Okay, we're going to read these verses, and as usual, we're going to make observations and ask questions about these verses. And to Kalev, the son of Yefuneh, he gave a part among the children of Yehuda, according to the commandment of Hashem to Joshua, even the city of Arba, the father of the giants, which is Hebron. Okay, this is consistent with what we saw last week. And Caleb
asked
what?
to give it.
I'm sorry?
This is what Caleb asked. Sorry, this is what Caleb had asked Yeshua to give him based on Hashem's,
right.
Moshe's,
Meaning Caleb said to him, Hashem said that I will inherit the area that where my feet stepped, and therefore I would like Kiryat Arba or Hebron. From this we understand, and that's how we explained last week. That's the origin of that midrash. That when he came with the Meraglim, he went to pray at the Me'arat HaMachpelah. Okay, verse 14. And Caleb drove out of there the three sons of the giant, Sheshai and Achiman and Talmai, the children of the giant. Okay? And he went up from there to the inhabitants of Dvir, and the name of Dvir before was Kiryat Sefer. And Caleb said, he who smites Kiryat Sefer and takes it, to him will I give Achsa, my daughter, for a wife. And Otniel, the son of Knaz, the brother of Caleb, took it, and he gave him Achsa, his daughter, for a wife. And it came to pass as she came to him, that she persuaded him to ask of her father a field. And she leaned off the donkey. This should be changed to, and she fell, or she dropped. Okay, she dropped off the donkey, and Caleb said to her, what is wanting to you? Or, what's wrong? How's it translated by you guys?
What is wanting to you? We're using your text.
Paul, what?
Okay, it says, what would thou, very old English, what wouldst thou have?
Okay, Galia, what does it say in yours?
What do you wish?
What do you wish? Literally in the Hebrew, it's malach. I would translate it as what is for you, meaning what's wrong, or what happened. That seems to be, and that also fits with the context more. And she said, verse 19, give me sustenance, but that's a bad translation. In Hebrew it says, Tna li bracha. Okay?
Give me a blessing.
Give me a blessing, for you have given me an arid land. Give me also springs of water. And he gave her the upper springs and the nether springs. Okay, then it goes on in verse 20. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah according to their families. And it goes until the end of the chapter to describe the individual cities. So, we're focusing on verses 15 to 19. Questions, observations, comments?
What does it mean that Caleb got portion among the children of Judah? He is one of the Yehuda from the tribe of Yehuda. It looks like the author puts him outside. Not outside the fact there is Judah and there is Caleb.
It's a good question because Caleb is from that tribe. Wait, actually, is he from that tribe? Trying to think. Is he actually from that? Okay. No, I'm just talking. Okay, we're back on Facebook as well. Okay, Galia, I'm since it's 1 o'clock in the morning here, I'm a little bit out of focus, and therefore Caleb ben Yefuneh. Yes, he is. Caleb ben Yefuneh is from the tribe of Judah. Therefore, your question is a good one. So, why do you have to specifically say Caleb ben Yefuneh inherited amongst the tribe of Yehuda? Of course, he inherited amongst the tribe of Yehuda. Let me just check something. Let's check. Let's just make sure that I am remembering this correctly. Or if someone wants to open up in Sefer Bamidbar, open up Parashat Shlach. Here, I'll open up on online as well while we. Here, let's see.
I hate to Google things, but I just Googled it and it says Caleb is from the tribe of Judah.
Yes, that's what I thought. And Galia, you were right. So Galia's question is a legitimate one. Why does it have to specifically say? Of course, he's going to inherit amongst the tribe of Yehuda. I'd say the only thing that comes to mind, I guess, the simple answer that comes to that, possibly maybe too simple of an answer, is to come and say that his inheritance wasn't a regular inheritance that, arbitrarily different families got different areas. Rather, Caleb got a unique, a special inheritance amongst the tribe of Yehuda, as we saw last week, because of the story of the spies. And also, Hebron and Kiryat Arba are not just random locations. They're locations of tremendous significance. That's where Merat HaMachpelah is. That's where Avram and Sarah are buried. That's where Yitzchak and Rivka are buried. That's where Yaakov and Leah are buried. It's a significant portion. Okay, other questions, other observations? I'm sorry?
The giant, they didn't kill giant in the previous chapters?
No, not in the book of Yehoshua. They did have that one in the war on the other side of the Jordan River before they crossed over when Moshe was still alive with Og Melech HaBashan and Sichon Melech HaEmori. But this is the first place we've encountered it in the book of Joshua. Okay, maybe let's read the verses about let's what?
I'm still trying to work out the story of who gave who to who. And
okay, so let's read it again. Okay? And verse 16. And Caleb said, "He who smites Kiryat Sefer and takes it, to him will I give Achsa my daughter for a wife." Okay, let's stop here. Questions, observations, comments?
Which one did you 17?
16.
Probably it was a tough job.
What?
Probably it was a tough job to take it.
No. Last week you said that one of the reasons what he said he wants this city is that I'm very strong, as I was 40 years ago.
Excellent.
And I can go to work and I can to war and I can come back and there is no problem. And suddenly he asked somebody, "Can you do it for me?"
Very good.
I will give it.
I agree.
So,
one could argue that he wanted to see who would be able to do it, so that he could give his daughter in marriage. Like, I mean,
So you're saying it's not. Paul, think about what he's saying. He's saying, listen, of course I could go and I can conquer the city, which would be the logical thing to do based on last week, but I have a different issue. I really need to marry off my daughter. So let's think. What's the best way I can marry my daughter off? Well, let's find a champion. Let's find a champion. Okay. I can't refute the possibility. But if you look at the text itself, it looks the opposite, right? Look at verse 15. And he went from there to the inhabitants of Dvir, and the name of Dvir before was Kiryat Sefer. And Caleb said, "He who smites Kiryat Sefer and takes it," he doesn't say, "He who would like to marry my daughter, let him prove himself by." That's not what it says. He says, listen, it basically looks like Galia says. It looks like he's saying, listen, I need someone to conquer the city. And in order to give motivation to conquer the city, I promise to give that person. By the way, this is not the only place we see this. We haven't reached it yet, but anyone familiar with a similar story in Tanakh? David. Yes, when Shaul was too scared to go out and fight Goliath, and he tries to convince a champion to go out to face Goliath one-on-one, and through this individual battle the whole battle will be decided. One of the things he says, he who goes out to fight against Goliath and beats him, I will give him my daughter, right? And that is one of the triggers to the whole dynamic between David and Shaul, because then David goes out, and he goes out without armor, and he goes and then he marries the king's daughter, and that becomes one of those stepping stones to replacing Shaul, or to Shaul to feel challenged by David, right? So this was not, and the fact that this appears again means that this wasn't an uncommon. It wasn't an uncommon practice. I think we're also familiar with it from history, that this was a concept, that someone who proves themselves to be a military victor, one of the spoils, one of the rewards that he gets from the king or from the general is to be able to marry. This is seen as a ticket into the whether it's the aristocracy or whether it's into a higher social circle, right? Because you're married to the daughter of the. Okay, so it seems that, and then Galia's question, I think, is an excellent one, which is Kalev just gave us a long speech of how young and full of life and vigor, and he's as strong now as he was back then, and he proved it by conquering Hebron. But then the moment he goes to another city which is nearby, which is also within his inheritance, he says, well, this I want someone else. Okay, let's continue. And
what? Sorry.
What is the problem with this city? Maybe the name of the city says something to us.
No, it's a fortified city. At this point, practically all the battles they're fighting meaning we saw in the first few battle chapters, we saw that the nations were foolish enough to try to wage war against the children of Israel out in the open, right? They gathered their armies and they tried to fight us face on. And that failed completely, because then they were beat on the field, and then the cities were exposed. And then we went to the cities and destroyed them. At this point, although there was a reason for that, because the first battle of the book was against who? What city? The first battle of the book was against which city? No, that's the second. The first?
to go.
No, the first one was exactly, yes, Jericho, and they had a wall. They had a big wall, and what happened to their wall? Came tumbling down, and then they went to the eye, and the eye also was behind the wall, and through different tactics, they were able to draw them out of the wall. So at that point, they said the other nation said, okay, let's just gain strength of numbers. They came together to try to attack, didn't succeed. At this point, they're just waiting behind the walls, and they're waiting because this no tactic is working. So the safest thing you could do is just hopefully hide behind your wall and hope that this invading army doesn't destroy you. So I don't think there's anything specific about Kiryat Sefer, other than the fact it's a fortified city. It needs to be conquered, needs to be, attacked, face on, which is not a simple task to do. So, but we still have the question: why is Kalev not doing it himself? Okay, then yes, Paul.
One of the small point, I guess. This Othniel, is he his half brother? Because they say the son of.
So there's two options. There's two. Wait, we're not sure. There are two options. Either he is his half brother, meaning that they come from the same mother, because they can't come from the same father, right? Look at their names. Okay. Kalev is Ben Yefuneh, and Othniel is Ben Knaz, the son of Knaz. So one option is to understand that they are half brothers; they share a mother. The other option is, if you look, there's another option that he's his nephew, right? And Othniel, the son of Knaz, the brother of Kalev. The brother of Kalev could either be on Othniel, or it could be on Knaz.
And regardless of Torah.
Right. You guys see that? So it could be that Othniel is Knaz's nephew, which would make more sense as far as someone who is younger. Remember, at this point, Kalev is in his mid 80s. Although Galia, you're right. He said, "I'm as strong now as I was back then." It makes more sense that Othniel was probably his nephew.
In my book, in the Stone edition, it's written Radak, that it was his half brother through their mother.
Right. I said from the pasuk itself, both readings are possible. That he is his half brother, or that he is his nephew. Okay.
And both marriages would be permitted.
Yes. In both cases, yes. Even if there are several examples where we see that an uncle marries their niece. Can anyone think of there are two famous examples? Ruth, it's not her uncle.
No, Esther.
Esther.
Oh, yes, correct. Yes, Esther. Esther is one of them. No, yes. Another one is Avraham and Sarah.
But that's before the Torah.
Yes, but I'm saying, but Avraham is Sarah's uncle.
I think everything was permitted then.
Almost, almost everything. Yes, but yes. So there are a few examples, and this is also something that we're familiar with from general culture. Many years ago of marrying within the family. Hopefully not too closely within the family, but within the second and third circles of the family, and also the phenomena of an uncle marrying a niece. Even though there's a big age difference, this is something that we know in more of a tribal style living was something that was not uncommon, and the Torah does not seem to frown on it. Okay, so and Othniel the son of Kenaz, the brother of Kalev, took it, and he gave him, right? So Kalev gave Othniel Achsa, his daughter, for a wife. Okay? So, and I guess, again, if you're accustomed to the Tanakh's writing and the way it thinks, this doesn't seem strange to you. Someone with modern sensitivities could have an issue with this, but that's probably because we're most of us, kind of brainwashed by romantic style marriages versus the way things were for many, many, many years, which is fixed marriages based on family, based on status, based on okay. Now we come to the more confusing part. And it came to pass.
For someone who's just, so I was just going to suggest that as we go on, that for someone who seems, quite strong in being able to conquer this city was difficult to conquer, he seems a bit wimpy as to. What.
Very good. Wait, you're talking about Kalev or about Othniel?
Othniel.
Right.
She asked him to ask, and then as it turns, looks like she's doing all the asking.
Okay, so great. So one of the things that I was going to point out that you read verse 16, and I guess if I were a little bit more modern than I actually am, or more liberal than I actually am, I would take slight offense with verse 16. That she's being treated like a trophy. Not she's treated. She's a trophy. She's a trophy for this soldier who goes and conquers a city, which means he's killing a bunch of people, and he wins as his trophy this woman. And maybe
you could say, was she asked whether she wants to marry him?
Right. We don't see that. Whereas, by the way, we do see instances like that in Tanakh. Right. We do see, let's say, that Rivka was asked whether she would like to, marry Isaac, whether she wants to go with Isaac's slave, Avram's slave, to marry this person, right? And the Torah specifically expresses that, says that, which means that the Torah seems to put significance in the woman being, it being consensual, which. Of course, it's very simple logic to us, but the fact that the Torah also brings that in great length in Rivka serves as kind of like a. Whereas over here, she's being treated like a trophy, as if she's spoils for the soldier who kills a bunch of people in a war, and we see her as being no one's asking her. She's being treated like an object. Right. That's when you read verse 16. One could easily get that sense. Verse 17, in Othniel the son of Kenaz. Verse 18. And it came to pass as she came to him. Sorry, just a second. And it came to pass as she came to him that she persuaded him, meaning she persuaded her betrothed, I guess, to ask of her father a field. And she leaned, or she fell, or she dropped. And Paul and Galina and Galia, what do your translations say? What verb is used?
She came down from her.
Came down. Ooh, that's not a good translation. Galia, what does yours say?
Which one is 18? When she came to him, she urged him to let her ask her father for a field. Then she slipped from the donkey.
It says slipped. She slipped.
She slipped.
So in Hebrew it's vatitznach, okay? Vatitznach me'al hachamor, which means either she fell or she dropped. I would translate it more as dropped, okay? Meaning it seems something active. It's not an accident, okay? Because you see, right? So Paul, I think you described it very accurately. She says to her betrothed, "Listen, mister, go to my father and demand from him that he give us a different land or additional land." Okay, this is and then obviously, and nothing happens. He doesn't listen to her, so she doesn't just stand back and say, "Okay." What does she do? She's more active. She falls off the donkey. She creates drama. Her father rushes to her. Now we don't know what the exact scene is, but it seems to be like as they're like I guess, I don't know if this is right before the wedding. Is this right after the wedding? It's somewhere in the process of the betrothment. Okay? While it's still happening, or as it's, and she falls off the thing. Her father rushes to her and says, what's wrong? Literally it's malach. What is it? What's wrong? Why did you fall? Are you okay? Actually, what's wrong? And then she says to him, and look at the phrasing. She's saying it as a command. Give me a blessing, for you have given me an arid land. Give me also springs of water. And he gave her, he gave her. It doesn't say, and he gave him. He gave what?
Or even them.
Right. He gave her the upper springs and the nether springs. So what has happened in this verse 18 and 19 compared to what we read in verse 16 and 17? What has happened here between the roles of the individuals? What has changed?
She's taken charge. His daughter seems to be wearing the pants, so to speak.
Back then, chances are that women actually did wear pants and men wore dresses, actually. But so you wouldn't be wrong about that. So it's not just that, so to say, maybe she wears the pants in the family, is that it's very clear here that she is not, meaning in verse 16, 17, she is passive. She is not only is she passive, she's almost absent. She's referred to almost as an object, right? Meaning she is not asked. She's not asked anything. She doesn't say anything. She's right. She's almost not there as a personality. As a personality, she's not part of the story. There's only two sides to verse 16 and 17, and that's Kalev and Othniel. She's like in the background. Okay, if you take it, I'll give it to you. And he took it. He took the city and he gave it to him. And then in verse 17 and 18, verse 18 and 19, suddenly we discover that is not the case. So either something has changed. She was one way and then she changed, but I don't think it is. I think, and you look at Kalev, he goes from being very, very active in verse 16 and 17, going and fighting and conquering and achieving. In verse 18 and 19, suddenly he is the one who is only in the background and he's out of the picture. He's not active in trying to get more and in trying to either ask or pressure his father-in-law. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's very clear that there's a big shift here in the emphasis on who's active and who's passive. How do we understand this? What's going on here? Yes, Kalia.
I think it's in the 18, there is one word I want you to explain to me. It's desiteru. It looks like asata to me. It looks like.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. That is actually a key word. Usually, the word lehasit comes from the context of lehasit is to convince someone to do something, but in a conniving way, in some manipulative. Usually, the word lehasit has a context of manipulation in it.
So what I think, what happened, she didn't want to do it. He made her do it.
Wait.
Maybe even.
She didn't. Wait. She didn't want to do what?
she didn't want, because she came to father and she just fell from the donkey. Maybe she was beaten, and father asked, what happened to you? Because later when we are reading, probably she is not coming back to her husband, and he
Wait.
her.
Wait. Vatesitehu, she is the one who's doing the has.
Quite an
No. Wait, Galia. But she is the one who's doing the hasata. Vatesitehu, she convinced him. Okay? She tried to manipulate. It's not, the word doesn't translate to manipulate, it translates to convince, but the context of this verb is more like through trickery or through not direct persuasion, but some kind of roundabout way. She is trying to get her husband or her betrothed to demand and to receive more from her father. And we see nothing happens, and then she becomes active. But also, by the way, it's interesting. She doesn't do it. She doesn't go up to her father directly and ask him or demand from him. She does some kind of act that creates some kind of drama, creates some kind of concern within her father, which then, she's using, I guess, different methods that she feels that will help her set up the scene to be able to achieve what she wants. But what's very interesting here, it's very clear. Sorry, before that, yes. More comments, more answers, more explanations.
I think that
What?
she staged everything. She staged everything. She convinced, he wanted Odile to go to step forward. And she told to Caleb that she can do this.
Based on what? You're saying based on what?
But she is very active in the end.
You're right. She's very active then, but we don't see her active in the beginning. We don't see her. Yeah, maybe she was, but we don't see. There's nothing to indicate that she was involved in his decision to go and try to conquer the city to begin with. She doesn't appear in the story at that point yet. So.
To give this Odile to go forward, to take her, to get her.
But we don't see her. Her name doesn't even appear yet at that stage. She only appears once, in Caleb's promise to whoever. Meaning, if she would appear sometime before, and then, yes, Alex.
It seems very bizarre, like somebody said, like Paul said, it's like a fairy tale. This is an active army. You tell somebody you go conquer the city, Why do you need to give that incentive?
Because that's a good question, but we have to remember something significant has changed in the structure of the wars. They went from being all-out wars with the whole, up until 2 chapters ago, the entire nation went together to fight. But then Joshua was old in age, and the land remained great to be inherited. The 2.5 tribes head back to Jordan, and then Joshua comes, and in these chapters he's defining each tribe what land is they're entitled to, and then that tribe has to go and conquer their area. So it's not an all-out war, and they don't even every tribe might not even necessarily have, we'll see later on, but not every tribe necessarily has a unified, formulated army. In this case, it's Caleb, who personally was given a certain small area in Hebron and around Hebron, which also includes the city of Kiryat Sefer. So it is his problem, so to say. He is the one, listen, this city is within the land that you were given. Okay, you need to go and conquer it. So Caleb, maybe he's wealthy, maybe he has soldiers, maybe he goes and he gets other people to join, and then he says, you join me and I'll join you. We'll see that later on, with some of the tribes decide to join together to fight together in order to gain land, each tribe's land. in this case, Kalev says, he's asking for someone else to come and help him. Maybe he needs more soldiers. Maybe his soldiers are tired already. Maybe there's something else going on. But it's not an all-out war. And no one there is obligated to conquer his city. It's his city. It's his city. It's supposed to be part of his inheritance. Now, yes, the tribe, meaning the entire tribe of Yehuda, is obligated to conquer the entire boundaries of Yehuda. And the same thing is true for all the tribes. But it doesn't mean that every individual person has the personal obligation to go and conquer all the cities. Yes, Paul.
You seem to be focusing on this apparent change of the daughter, Aksa, from how she was originally. But when we're introduced to her, I'm not sure that her role is meant to be active. I mean, she's just put there as the outcome of this. I'm still struck by what seems to be a change in Othniel, that he was very forceful, he did what he had to do, and now he doesn't even answer her and doesn't carry forward any of what she's asking. She has to take charge. Like, it just seems like something's changed more in him. That you'd think that if he was able to conquer a city, he'd be able to ask.
Right. So I'm not so sure that there's a change. Option one is to say that there's some dramatic change and the reversal of their personalities. The other option is to come and say no. That they're consistent. Meaning, what I mean, this is a thought that I have. It's not fully formulated, but so I'm sharing it with you in its raw form. That our assumption is that if in verse 16, 17, if a woman is being offered up by her father as a reward for conquering a city, then that is either degrading, or that we would expect her to have something to say about it, and that if she doesn't, therefore she must be a submissive and weak personality. That's kind of like our base assumption in that type of, if this were happen today, we would all say, wow, this is a very submissive and weak personality, very submissive woman to the patriarchy of her family, of the tribe that she lives in. That's how I think we would see it today. And therefore it would be very strange for us if the moment after she got married, or as she's betrothed, she's suddenly telling her husband what to do, and then she's telling her father what she expects to receive from him. So therefore, for us today, these two things they really wouldn't sit together, and therefore we would say, oh, something dramatic must have changed. Another option, as I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, is that she was perfectly okay with it. She saw it as something which is, meaning with being offered as, because why wouldn't she want to marry someone who's a hero, someone who volunteers to head the army of her father, to expand the boundary of her family's territory? Why wouldn't she be excited? Why wouldn't she want to be offered to a man like that? We'll see. We will see later on. I'm giving you a spoiler alert here. The first shofet, the first judge in the book of Judges, will be Othniel ben Knaz. He's actually going to be the next leader. After Joshua, he ends up taking over. Not Kalev. Othniel is the next one. So we're getting we're getting a first glance at something that later on will become a much bigger, much more significant. Okay, so I kind of spoiled it for you. And I think Othniel maybe is. So she, when it comes to, she has no issue. Why wouldn't she want to be married to a star officer who volunteers for the sake of her family, and of course for the sake of the tribe, but also to her personal family? Why wouldn't she? Why?
And even,
Meaning,
it almost sounds like what some of these. Sorry.
Wait. I just want to continue the thought. Then, Paul, I'll come back to you. But I think this is Right. There's another question, which maybe we forgot to ask, which is these chapters and the following chapters. They're dealing with the inheritance of the tribes. One could wonder why this story appears here at all.
Yes.
Why at all? What is the significance of telling me that? So maybe you have to tell me that Otniel ben Knaz volunteered because we're going to meet him later on, and therefore it's significant to know that he volunteered and he was a emerging personality in the tribe of Yehuda. The tribe of Judah, as we know, is a central tribe, throughout all of history. But what is significant about this whole story about Achsa? Why is it needed? Okay, it's kind of interesting, and it's going to lead us to some interesting discussions about, the reversal in how her personality is portrayed, what she cares about, she doesn't care about. She doesn't seem to care about being promised to a promising officer who eventually is going to be one of the next leaders. Okay, maybe she understood this, maybe she detected this in him, so she has no problem as being part of the ability of her family to inherit a larger piece of land. But then when it comes to her own personal family and what they're going to receive, she says, I want to make sure that we receive what we need. And the truth is, and this might sound, and I am very much, maybe I'm opening myself up here to a big argument, but I think this fits with that Avram Avinu was had his head in the high big ideals of he's going to sit outside in the heat and bring in 3 strangers. At the end of the day, who's the one who actually has to make sure that the house is running? Sarah. She's the one who has to cook, and she's the one who sends the boy to go get, and so on and so forth. And then we see a similar thing with Yitzchak, that he had his head high up in the sky as far as the ideals. And yes, I'm going to bless Esav, and Esav, I'm going to turn him into being good. And Rivka is the one who's much more realistic, understanding what's actually happening in the house, what the correct way to do. And she goes about and makes sure. And by the way, there's actually a few similarities with Rivka.
Yes, I was thinking about coming off the donkey.
Yes.
Rivka coming
Yes.
off the donkey.
Yes.
But it was a different kind of coming off. I think she was in awe when she came off the donkey, as opposed to using it as a tactic to get what she wants.
You're correct. Over there, it seems to be something that happened to her and not that she did. Okay, but the fact that whenever the Torah Tanakh uses a word that is similar, or uses a theme which is similar, it's usually trying to connect us back. It's trying to say there's something about these personalities which is similar. And definitely, when you think about Rivka and the fact that she absolutely was, and by the way, over there also, she was being given, right? She was being given as a child or as a teenager, as a young teen. She was being given by her family to someone else, right? In exchange for gold and treasures and whatever. So there is, but we see, I think we can find this other similarity, just like Rivka, who we know was very, very active, extremely active, much more so than Yitzchak, and had a better understanding of the reality, the day-to-day life, and with the chutzpah, so to say, almost, to make sure that it happens. And this seems to be happening over here as well. Yes, Galia?
Because I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but here I see something new. Before it was conquered, but now, by the question, because they got piece of Negev. In Negev there is no water, and they understand that they have to work land. And to work land without water, you can do this.
Right.
So what's new here Now it's the different kind of thinking. Okay, we got land, now we have to work this land.
Yeah, and it very much could be that Otniel, he's more of a, maybe, possibly, he's more of a military mind. That's what he's busy with. That's the way he's thinking. And she seems to be a lot more understanding of the reality and says, okay, it's very nice that we got this city, that you conquered this city and we got this area, but okay, but we're gonna have to work it, and if we don't have water, and I think it's almost like, one could wonder, why does she drop for the donkey? Because it's like, oh, you're so concerned for me. Really? You're so concerned? How can you give me arid land? What's the point? What is you're concerned for my welfare? Then give me something I could work with. Again, not me, achsa, me and my husband and all the children. Meaning, this is an inheritance that is going to be for generations. These families, the area that they're getting, is going to be theirs for generations upon generations. And remember, every 50 years, the land goes back to them. It is their land for millennia. That's a long time. And she has this understanding of the significance of getting the land and making sure that it can be worked and can be, and this gives us a very different picture of, just because the women are portrayed in Tanakh in some areas as being passive, it is not necessarily because they were weak or because they were submissive. Not at all. It's because, in this case, I think, because there was an understanding of, meaning they willingly agreed to the structure and to the ideals that were reflected through these behaviors. And when they disagreed, or when they understood it to be differently, then there was no inability on their part to act on it, and and she's not rebuked by her husband or by her father, or she's not seen negatively at all. Quite the opposite. I think she's being heroed here. And if we go back to the question of why, in the context of this whole chapter, which is talking about the tribe and the inheritance of the tribe, do we need the story at all? I think the answer to that is because it is very easy to lose sight of the individuals when the nation is so busy with such big things. The nation is conquering the land. The tribes are finally getting their inheritance. Each family is, and like history is being made here. And whatever land you settle now is yours for generations, for millennia. You're right, for your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. And this is like, that's it. This is everything we've been waiting for since we left Egypt and since the beginning of Joshua. And all these big, tremendous events are taking place. And I think we'll see practically every chapter there's going to be a little story. To come and say, don't lose sight that within the collective of the Jewish people, the nation, and the collective of the tribe, don't lose sight of what? Of the individuals. And I think that specifically, if you want to say don't lose sight of the individual, it's the best, probably to prove this point, is to go with the members of society that otherwise it would have been easiest to ignore. It would be easiest to ignore a woman at the time. And therefore, and we'll see it again, we'll see it later on with Bnot Tzlofchad. The Bnot Tzlofchad show up again. So therefore you can say, not only is the individual is significant, and every individual is significant, and so much so that, look, what this individual was able to realize and achieve in the context of, while the whole nation's conquering the whole land and the whole tribe is inheriting the whole land, don't lose sight of the individual as part of the collective. I think it's a very, very neat way to have a very, very, very smart, very cool way of how it takes her, depicts her in a way that we kind of assume, oh yeah, that's how Tanakh depicts a woman, and suddenly it's like zhoop, she kind of teaches everyone a lesson, and everyone says, oh yeah, she's right, yes.
can I ask a question? I don't understand that Joshua have a project to conquer the land.
I'm sorry, say again?
Especially they felt that the small military, not to conquer the land.